Hanju ki jai, Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashatarashata Shimar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashatarashata Shimar Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashatarashata Shimar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Nityala Pavishta Maha Bhagavat Shri Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nityala Pavishta Shri Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki jai. Nityala Pavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nugagariya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadas Raghunath Shar Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Ṭhākura ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Mandala Gaura Mandala Vrajamandala Mandham ki jai. Sarva Abhishtabharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura ki jai. Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda ki jai. Shri Gauḍīya Bhāṣya ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. One second. All right. Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yang pravrajantamanupeta krityam dvaipayano virahaka tara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedus tang sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shrinvatang Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Redantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhrit Satam Nashta Prayesh Pavadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Kshiptastakama Ditaranga Madhe Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanai Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everybody. Raj Bhuvan Yadav ji, Ganga ji. Uh-oh. Looks like my internet's having problems, huh? Maybe I should switch over to my hotspot. Anyways, who's there? Oh, Gopikant Prabhu and Pradyumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Mataji, Madhavi Didi. Hari Bol, everybody. And also Raseshwari Mataji and Indira Mataji, who will be watching later on. Dandavat pranams to all of you. All right, so yesterday we read up to verse 13. So let's just read the translations of this chapter describing, what is the title of it? Chapter 12, Description of Varṇāśrama-dharma. The Supreme Lord said, I'm going to check back just to make sure that connection's working okay. If it cuts out too much, let me know and I will switch over to my mobile hotspot. Actually, let me just test this out. I just want to see how bad it is here. Okay, that's not way too bad. Okay. The Supreme Lord said, one who desires to adopt the third order of life, the Vanaprastha ashram, should leave his wife in the care of his mature sons, or else take her with him to peacefully reside in the forest. In the forest, a Vanaprastha should maintain himself by eating pure fruit, roots, and bulbs that grow in the forest. He should dress himself in tree bark, leaves, grass, or deerskin. One should not partake of honey-based liquors, animal flesh, fungus, mushrooms, horseradish, or any hallucinogenic or intoxicating herbs, even those taken as so-called medicine. While engaged in his life as a Vanaprastha, one should execute penance during the hottest days of summer by keeping fires on 4 sides and the blazing sun overhead. During the rainy season, one should remain outside, subjecting himself to torrents of rain, and in the freezing winter, one should remain submerged in water up to his neck. One can eat cooked food, such as grains, or eat fruits that has been ripened in the course of time. One can grind grains with a stone mortar and pestle, or one can simply grind the grains with his teeth. The Vanaprastha should go out and collect only as much as he requires for his bodily maintenance. He should not save anything for future use. The Vanaprastha should perform seasonal sacrifices by offering oblations of charu and sacrificial cakes prepared from rice and other grains that are found in the forest. However, he should never offer animal sacrifices to me, even those that are mentioned in the Vedas. Expert knowers of the Vedas have prescribed for a Vanaprastha the performance of various sacrifices, such as the Agnihotra, Darsha, and Purnamasa, as well as the vow of Chaturmasya. When a vanaprastha performs severe austerities, only accepting the bare necessities of life so that he becomes so emaciated that his bones and veins are clearly seen, he will attain Maharloka and thereafter come to my supreme abode. Who could be more foolish than a person who utilizes his exalted but painful penance, which can award ultimate liberation, for enjoying insignificant sense gratification? When a vanaprastha approaches the old age so that his body trembles and he can no longer perform his prescribed duties, then, in a trance of meditation, he should place the sacrificial fire within his heart, fix his mind upon me, and finally enter the fire to give up his life. If the vanaprastha develops detachment for everything material, even promotion to Brahmaloka, knowing that any situation resulting from the fruits of one's activities is miserable, he can accept the renounced order of life, sannyas. After worshiping me for a long time, following the prescribed rules and regulations, one should give everything in his possession to the sacrificial priest, and then take the sacrificial fire within himself. Having achieved a state of complete detachment, he should accept the renounced order of life. Oh wait, that's where we read up to yesterday. So, okay, let's read from here. Just checking the connection. Hare Krishna, Gargarajji, Dandavat Pranam. Ishtva yatopadesham mang datva sarva svamrit vijay agnin swaprana aveshya nirapeksha parivrajit. After worshipping me for a long time, following the prescribed rules and regulations, one should give everything in his possession to the sacrificial priest and then place the sacrificial fire within himself. Having achieved a state of complete detachment, he should accept the renounced order of life. So now we've in the previous chapter we read about the duties of brahmachari and grihastha. Now we finished reading about vanaprastha and now we're beginning sannyas. Viprasya vai sannyas. Oops, wait. I didn't read the commentary. So, Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. At this time, one should perform 8 kinds of shraddha. Shraddha? Shraddha. I don't know. I think that's a spelling mistake. There should be no long e at the end. One should perform 8 kinds of shraddha and other rituals that are described in the Shastra. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya commentary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. After giving up all kinds of bad association and after giving dakshina to the priests, if one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, he is considered eligible to take sannyas. Lusty desires are impediments to the service of the Supreme Lord. One who aspires for liberation from material existence should give up all lusty activities and instead accept the role of a mendicant who is only interested in rendering service to the Supreme Lord. Viprasya vai sannyasato deva daradirupina vignan kurvantyayam hyasman akramya samiyat param. This sannyasi will surpass us. This is what the demigod's thinking like this. This sannyasi will surpass us and attain the supreme destination. Thinking like this, the demigods try to create obstacles in the path of the sannyasi by appearing before him in the form of his former wife and other women. A sannyasi should not become disturbed by this. Sārārtha-darśinī. A sannyasi should not be disturbed by the obstacles the demigods place before him. When a Brahmin takes sannyas, the demigods enter the body of his wife and try to entangle him in sense gratification. Why do they create such impediments? because they are envious that the sannyasi will surpass them by going back home, back to Godhead. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The demigods are administrators of universal affairs who award the fruits of one's actions. They may be born as one's legitimate wife and children so that they can create disturbances on the path of a person who is cultivating Krishna consciousness. When one eagerly tries to render devotional service, the demigods attempts to put obstacles on his path by posing as his wife, son, or friends. They try to misguide one from the path of spiritual life by advertising that material enjoyment is the goal of human life. In the name of religion and on the pretext of duty, they misguide a sincere sannyasi so that he falls down from the renounced order of life and gives up his desire to worship the Supreme Lord. Bibrachchen munirvasa gopina chadanam param tyaktang na dandapatrabhyam anyat kinchir anapadi. If a sannyasi desires to wear something more than a kopin, he may cover his waist and hips with another cloth. Except in the case of emergency, he should not carry anything but his danda and water pot. Sārārtha-darśinī. The duties of a sannyasi are being described in this verse. He should wear only a kopin, or if he wants to wear something more, he can cover his waist and hips with another cloth. A sannyasi should not carry anything more than a danda and a water pot. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. A sannyasi should not think of dressing extravagantly, and for that reason, he is restricted to just a kopin and another piece of cloth. If he desires to possess something more than a danda and a water pot, that thirst for accumulating many luxurious objects will certainly pollute the sannyasi's desire for worshipping the Supreme Lord. Drishti putam nyaset padam, vastra putam pipej jalam, satya putam vaded vacham, mana putam samacharet. One who is trying to elevate himself to the transcendental platform should only place his foot on the ground after seeing that there are no tiny insects there, so that he may not cause any violence to any living entity. He should drink water only after straining it through a piece of cloth, and he should speak only words that possess the purity of truth. Similarly, he should only perform those activities that he has ascertained to be very pure by nature. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. While walking, a devotee of the Lord is careful not to kill any insects that may be in his path. He strains his drinking water through a cloth just to make sure he doesn't drink any tiny creatures. Speaking lies to enhance one's sense gratification should be avoided because this is not suitable behavior for a devotee. Speech must be controlled so that it is never used to condone impersonal philosophy or heavenly sense gratification, because such sound vibrations contaminate the heart. By philosophically considering the matter very deeply, one should arrive at the conclusion that any activity other than the devotional service of the Lord is absolutely useless. In this way, one should engage in Krishna consciousness. Checking the internet connection. Okay. Haribol Suriri Didi. Monani ha nilayama dandavag deha chetasam nahyete yasa santyanga venubhir na bhaveryati. My dear Uddhava, one who does not avoid useless speech, refrain from useless endeavors, and control his body, mind, and speech cannot be considered a sannyasi merely because he carries bamboo rods. Sārārtha-darśinī. The word mona means refraining from useless speech. The word aniha means refraining from useless activities. The word anila ayama means to regulate the breathing. One who is unable to control these three internal urges cannot be accepted as a tridandi sannyasi. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Here the word danda indicates the staff carried by sannyasis, and it also means strict discipline. Vaishnav sannyasis carry a staff made of the 3 bamboo rods that indicates the dedication of his body, mind, and words to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one who simply carries a danda without disciplining the activities of his body, mind, and words cannot be considered a true Vaishnav sannyasi, as indicated in this verse. The Uddhava-gīta section of the Mahabharata and in Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī's Upadeshamrita, there are nice instructions on how to engage in the sannyas order of life. Hey, we made it to 50% of the book just now. We're halfway through. A neophyte devotee who simply adopts the external ornaments of Tridandi sannyas will certainly fail to control his senses. One who accepts the renounced order of life simply for enhancing his false prestige, thus making a show of being an advanced devotee without actual advancement in hearing and chanting the Lord's glories, will soon become a victim of the illusory energy of the Lord. Bhiksham chaturshu varneshu vigarhyan varjayangscharet saptagaran asankliptangs tushel labdhena tavata. Pretty sure this is an L with a dot under it, this Y here. Leaving aside the houses of those who have fallen from the standard of Vedic culture, one should beg from 7 houses and be satisfied with whatever is easily obtained. One can beg food from any one of the 4 social orders. Sārārtha-darśinī. Brahmanas are qualified to accept charity, teach the Vedas, act as priests, or maintain themselves by collecting rejected grains from the agricultural fields. A Brahman should avoid begging alms from the houses of those who are cursed or who are in a wretched condition of life. He should beg alms from 7 houses chosen at random, without considering who might be more favorable or generous. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. There are 3 methods for begging alms: madhukar, asanklipta, and prakpranita. To collect a little food from many houses, just enough for his maintenance, is called madhukar. This is the best method for a sannyasi to beg alms. The process mentioned in this verse is called asanklipta, whereby one approaches 7 houses and is satisfied with whatever he receives. Prakpranita is that process by which one establishes regular donors and collects one's maintenance from them. In this verse, it is recommended that without discriminating, one should go to 7 houses and be satisfied with whatever may be obtained there. One should, for one's personal maintenance, only from those, it looks like there's a word missing here. One should, I'm just going to add in words. One should, for one's maintenance, one should beg alms or accept alms for one's personal maintenance only from those who sincerely observe their duties within the Varṇāśrama system, and not from those who have neglected this culture, especially if they are atheists. Bahir jalashayam gatva tatropasprisya bhagyata vibhajya pavitam shesham bhunjita sheshamahritam. Taking the food collected by begging, one should leave the populated areas and go to a without speaking. Thereafter, one should eat whatever remains, leaving nothing After, he should eat whatever remains, not leaving any remnants on his plate. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One who is trying to advance on the path of devotional service should not get into arguments with materialistic people who may ask for a portion of one's food acquired by begging. The word vibhajya indicates that one should give such persons what they ask for, just to avoid a disturbance. After offering whatever remains to the Lord, one should eat everything and not save anything for the future. Uh-oh. It cut out again. So, but the internet's not way too bad? It's not cutting out way too much? Let me know. Ekascharen mahim etam nisanga samyatendriya atmakrida atmarata atmavan samadarshana. A sannyasi should travel over the earth without any companion, remaining free from material desires by carefully controlling his mind and senses, and always seeing how the Supreme Lord is situated within the hearts of all living beings. With equal vision, he should remain fixed on the transcendental platform. Sārārtha-darśinī. Atmarata indicates the state of self-satisfaction that results from realizing the supersoul within. The word atmavan indicates that the sannyasi should be steady in the self. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One cannot remain steady in his worship of the Lord Hari if he maintains material desires. When one looks towards women with thoughts of sense gratification, there is no possibility of controlling the senses. For this reason, one should engage in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness 24 hours a day. When one is thus fully engaged in glorifying Lord Krishna and engaging in his devotional service, then the desire for worldly association will certainly diminish. The association of devotees is the only remedy for curing the disease of bad association. Good association with Lord Krishna and his devotees automatically vanquishes useless material association, and it helps one to carry out the Vedic injunctions that are meant to lift the conditioned soul out of material darkness and place him on the liberated platform of Krishna consciousness. In this regard, Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī states in his Upadeshamrita verse 4, Dadati pratigrihnati guhyam akhyati pritchati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidham pritilakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam, and offering prasadam are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. The best association is to remain in the association of devotees, where there is always hearing and chanting of the transcendental names, forms, qualities, and associates and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The association of devotees is not bad association, because in that association there are no discussions of material topics. The devotees are all fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, following in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vraj. By the influence of such devotees, one develops equal vision and sees the realized knowledge of Krishna consciousness everywhere. As one begins to understand his eternal relationship with Lord Krishna, he becomes Atmavan, situated in his constitutional position. An advanced Vaishnava, constantly enjoying the mellows of loving devotional service and carrying out the mission of the Lord on the earth, is Atmakrida, one who enjoys life within the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. The advanced devotee remains constantly attracted to the Supreme Lord and his devotees, and is therefore Atmarata, fully satisfied by constant engagement in devotional service. One cannot possibly develop the exalted qualities mentioned here without becoming an unalloyed devotee of Lord Krishna. If a devotee resides in a place where enviousness of Krishna and his devotees is prominent, as a result of that bad association, he will be unable to control his senses and thus begin to take interest in striving for religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Instead of becoming fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he will gradually come to resemble the non-devotees that surround him. Due to aversion to Krishna's service, one becomes attracted to worshipping the wonderful male and female creations of the Lord's illusory energy, demigods, demigoddesses, celebrities, politicians, prostitutes, etc., considering these ordinary personalities to be equal to Krishna. The transcendental Cupid Krishna is the only object of worship. When one realizes this fact, his selfish mentality of worshipping many gods is vanquished. Okay, there's a slight lag in the audio for a few seconds, but now it seems okay. It seems that to be periodically happening, huh? Vivikta kshema sharano marbhava vimalashaya atmanam chintayed ekam abhedena maya muni. Dwelling in a solitary place without fear, a pure-hearted devotee should realize himself as being non-different from me. Sārārtha-darśinī. To think of the spirit soul as non-different from the super soul is the essence of Sayujya Mukti. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. A pure devotee of the Lord is one whose only aim in life is to serve the Supreme Lord in one of the 5 principal relationships. He has no interest other than the service of the Lord, and he never thinks of himself as qualitatively different from him. It is one's false identification with the temporary gross and subtle bodies that causes one to think of himself as being different from the Lord. Indeed, false identification with matter is the cause of all kinds of misery. To remedy this situation, one should render service to the Lord, who is the master of the senses, with purified senses. They should render service to the Lord, Hrishikesh, who is the master of the senses, with one's purified senses. When the mind is distracted from the service of the Lord, being attracted by the objects of the senses, one again labors hard to fulfill his material desires under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature. One who is not actually fixed in devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, cannot be fearless, being deprived of the Lord's shelter. One should always consider how his constitutional position is that of a minute part and parcel of the Lord, and thus non-different from him. Anvikshetatmano bandhang moksham cha jnana nishtaya bandha indriya vikshepo moksha esham cha samyama. By the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, one should clearly ascertain the nature of bondage and liberation. Bondage occurs when the senses are utilized for material enjoyment, and liberation is attained when the senses are withdrawn from the enjoyment of sense objects and exclusively engaged in my service. Sārārtha-darśinī. The word anviksheta means to see by careful study. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. For one who remains absorbed in thought of the temporary objects of this world, without any care for realizing his eternal self and his relationship with the Supreme Self, his agitated senses will induce him to enjoy unrestricted gratification. If one restrains his senses from unregulated enjoyment, he can get respite from their harassment. Tasman niyamya shadvargam marbhavena charen muni virakta kshudra kamebhyo labhatmani sukham mahat. Carefully controlling the 5 senses and the mind by always engaging them in the devotional service of the Lord, one experiences transcendental happiness, giving one the strength to remain detached from all kinds of material sense gratification, which are, after all, quite insignificant. Sārārtha-darśinī. The word Shadavargam refers to the 6 senses. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. By the influence of cultivating attachment for the eternal, pure, complete whole, one can conquer the 6 enemies: lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. If one renounces the thirst of insignificant material enjoyment and always engages in the Lord's service, he will surely experience great transcendental happiness. 24. Hare Krishna Shasharmaji. Pura grama vrajan sartan, bhikshartam pravishangscharit, punya desha sharich chaila, Varṇāśrama-vatim mahim. One should travel to holy places of pilgrimage, or else remain by the side of rivers, or in the solitude of mountains and forests. He should go to cities, towns, and agricultural areas just to approach the materialists to beg for the bare necessities of life. Vānaprasthaśrama-padeśva-bhikshnām bhikṣamacharet samsiddhyatyashva sammoha shuddha sattva shilantasa. One in the Vanaprastha order of life should be accustomed to accept charity from others, because by this practice he will be freed from the illusion. He will be freed from illusion and quickly become perfect in spiritual life. Indeed, one who subsists on food grains obtained in such a humble manner purifies his existence. Sārārtha-darśinī. The word shilantasa means to collect food grains scattered in the marketplaces. By eating such food, the heart becomes purified. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. If a materialistic sense enjoyer aspires to free himself from material entanglement, he must engage in begging alms for his subsistence, because this will force him to humble himself before others. When one becomes freed from all desires for material enjoyment in this way, he no longer remains a fool. He learns to be satisfied with whatever he collects by begging, and because of the purity of his heart, he attains perfection. Naitar vastutaya pashyed drishyamana vinashyati asakta chitto viramed iha mutra chikirshitat. One should never think that the temporary arrangements of matter are ultimate reality. Keeping oneself free from material attachment, one should give up all kinds of endeavor meant for material betterment, both in this life and the next. Sārārtha-darśinī. One may doubt, how can a gentleman give up delicious food to eat dry particles of rice? The answer is given here. Do not see delicious food as real, because in due course of time it will be destroyed. Considering this, one should never endeavor for material gain, both in this life and in the life after death. Yaritar atmani jagan manovak prana samhatam sarvam mayeti tarkena swastas tyaktva natat smarit. One should consider the cosmic manifestation, which includes one's physical body, mind, life, air, and speech, and which is situated within the Lord, to be a product of his illusory energy. One should remain self-situated, fully renouncing the hope that such temporary manifestations can grant him happiness. Sārārtha-darśinī. This material world is the effect of the three modes of material nature. The word taktva indicates that one must give up one's false identification with the material world and the material body, since both of these are merely products of the illusory potency of the Lord. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Instead of striving for material objects, if one hankers for the Lord's mercy, his material attachment will gradually diminish. According to one's previous memories, one develops a thirst for enjoying temporary objects with his body, mind, and speech. However, if one becomes inclined toward the service of the Supreme Lord, his previous memories will no longer misguide him. Jnananishto virakto va marbhakto vanapekshaka salingan ashramang styaktva chared avidhigochara. A learned transcendentalist who has renounced all desires for sense gratification by engaging in the cultivation of knowledge, as well as my devotee who doesn't even desire liberation, neglects the ritualistic performances mentioned in the Vedas. They are not bound by those prescribed rules and regulations that guide persons influenced by the three modes of material nature. They are beyond these rules. Sārārtha-darśinī. Here, the Paramahansa stage is described. In such a transcendental position, one no longer bothers to perform religious rituals meant for conditioned souls. Both the Jnana Yogi, who aspires for liberation, and the pure devotee of the Lord, who does not care for liberation, are detached from all kinds of material activities. When the mind has become completely purified, there is no more chance for engagement in sinful acts. The rules and regulations that are prescribed in the Vedas guide those who are enamored by thoughts of gratifying the senses. One on the transcendental platform can move about freely, as herein described by the Lord. However, one who is still materially contaminated should not artificially try to imitate such an exalted position, and thus make a mockery of his spiritual life. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The principal duty of a sannyasi is to remain disinterested in material enjoyment. The enjoyment of temporary objects by uncontrolled senses creates obstacles on the path of self-realization. The pure devotee of the Lord, being totally disinterested in material enjoyment because of being fully engaged in the service of the Lord, is beyond the range of rules and regulations, and thus can freely wander over the earth at will. Rules and regulations are meant to guide those who are still easily misguided by the urges of their uncontrolled minds and senses. It is only sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm actually going to take breakfast downstairs because I'm usually so you can take all of this.
I'll share with you.
Yeah, and there's bowls and everything like that there. But I didn't put any ghee in there, so you can put ghee. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so it is only when one rises to the stage of Paramahansa that one can abandon the various rituals, paraphernalia, and disciplines prescribed for his spiritual order. This is clearly stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 2293 as follows: Eto sabachari ar Varṇāśrama-dharma akinchana hoya loya Krishnaika sharanam akinchana hoya loya Krishnaika sharanam. Without hesitation, one should take exclusive shelter of Lord Krishna with full confidence, giving up bad association and even neglecting the regulative principles of the 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams. That is to say, one should abandon all material attachment. Buddho balakavat kridet, kushalo jadavachcharet, vaded unmatavad vidvan, gocharyam naigamaschcharet. Although most wise, the Paramahansa should behave like a child, not caring for honor or dishonor. Although most expert, he should act like one who is incompetent. Although most learned, he should speak like a madman. And although well versed in the Vedas, he should behave in an unrestricted manner. Sārārtha-darśinī. A Paramahansa conceals his exalted position out of fear that the great adoration the public will offer him may disturb his equilibrium. Thus, although possessing great wisdom, he may behave in a childish manner. Although very expert, he may act like one who is incompetent. Although very learned, he may speak just like a madman. And although a great Vedic scholar, he may behave like a fool. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Although neglecting ordinary rules and regulations, A Paramahansa does not ever become sinful or immoral, but rather neglects ritualistic aspects of religious custom, such as dressing in a particular way, performing certain ceremonies, or executing specific penances and austerities. Materialistic people, by means of their external perception, cannot understand the exalted position of a Paramahansa, and thus they commit offenses that bring about their ruination. One who does not understand the purport of this verse of Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī will certainly remain fixed in a conception of materialistic Varṇāśrama. Drishtai svabhava janatar vapushashtra doshar na prakritatamiha bhakta janasya pashyet gangam bhasam nakalu budbudapena pankar brahma dravatam apagachati nira dharmai. Being situated in his original Krishna-conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should not overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. That's Upadeshamita verse 6. Vedavada rato nasyan na pashandi na haituka shushka vada vivadena kanchit paksham samashayet. A devotee of the Lord should not divert himself to engage in the fruitive rituals recommended in the Karma Kanda sections of the Vedas. Of course, he should not indulge in an atheistic mentality by speaking against the Vedic injunctions. A devotee should also avoid acting like a mundane logician, taking part in useless arguments. Sārārtha-darśinī. Although a Paramahansa hides his actual position, he is still restrained from performing certain activities. He should not advocate fruitive activities just to conceal himself, nor should he disguise himself as an atheist or dress as a Buddhist or member of any other atheistic cult opposing the Vedas. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The whole purpose of the Vedas is to understand that which is beyond material experience, so the devotees of the Lord do not become involved in dry arguments about the Vedas, like expert fruitive workers. They do not waste their time in useless speculation that culminates in placing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the possessor of unlimited energies, in the same category as the demigods, who are subordinate to him, being his empowered representatives. Devotees have no desire for being praised and thus never take sides in mundane arguments. In this regard, one should discuss the following verse from Sri Upadeshamrita number 2. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangascha lolyam cha sharbir bhaktir vinashyati. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. 2. Over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. 3. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4. Practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5. Associating with worldly-minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6. Being greedy for mundane achievements. No dvijeta janadhiro janam chodve jayan janam chodve jayen natu Ativadang statiksheta navamanyeta kanchana deham uddishya pashuvar vairam kuryam nakenachit. A transcendentalist should not become frightened or disturbed by others, nor should he ever act in a way that disturbs others. Nor should he ever act in a way that disturbs others or makes them fearful. He should tolerate the insults others hurl at him, and he should not criticize others. He should never create enmity simply for some material advantage, for that would make him no better than an animal. Sārārtha-darśinī. The phrase ativada means very harsh words. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. A saintly person does not cause anxiety to any living entity by means of his body, mind, or speech. In this regard, one should carefully contemplate this verse, which is spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Trinārapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Eka eva paro hyatma bhuteshvatmanyavastita yatendur udapatreshu bhutanyekatmakani cha. The one Supreme Lord is situated within the bodies of all living entities, and indeed within their very self. Just as the moon is reflected on the surface of innumerable bodies of water, the Supersoul, although one, is present everywhere. Every material body is thus composed of the energy of the one Supreme Lord. Sārārtha-darśinī. The understanding that frees one from enviousness is being described in this verse. The Supersoul is present within all living entities. Just as the moon, although one, is reflected in innumerable pots of water, the Supersoul, although one, is present within all living entities as a supreme director. Therefore, one should not envy anyone, knowing that the Supreme Lord is present within all material bodies, which are also manifestations of his energy. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. An object and its reflection are certainly similar in many respects, but one should never think that they are actually equal and thus disregard the object. The material bodies of the conditioned souls may certainly be subject to criticism, but by understanding how the Supreme Lord is present within each of them, one should free himself by thoughts of duality, which are prominent in the society of animals. The devotees of the Lord are never hostile or violent toward anyone, knowing that everyone is the eternal servant of God. Alabdva na vishideta kale kale shanam kvachit labdva na hrishyera tritiman ubhayam daivatantritam. If sometimes one does not get enough food, one should not be discouraged, just as when one receives delicious food, he should not become overjoyed. Being fixed in firm determination to remain a faithful devotee, one should understand both situations to be under the control of the Supreme Lord. Sārārtha-darśinī. The phrase daivatantritam means under the control of providence. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Happiness and distress come automatically in due course of time, and thus one should remain undisturbed in either condition. We foolishly consider ourselves to be the doers of our activities, but due to this false ego of thinking ourselves to be the controllers, we are forced to experience happiness and distress according to the quality of our activities. Sorry, one second, just need to stretch. Okay. Aharartam samiheta yuktam tat pranadharanam tattvam vimrishyate tena tarvigyaya vimuchyate. If required, one should endeavor to get sufficient food, because one should carefully maintain his health. By keeping the body fit, one can cultivate spiritual truth and thereby attain liberation. Sārārtha-darśinī. If food does not come automatically or by begging, one should make an endeavor because food is necessary to sustain one's life. If one's body is in a healthy condition, one can cultivate God consciousness without disturbance and as a result, make steady advancement. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One should not eat too much nor eat too little. One should only eat as much as required to keep the body fit for rendering devotional service to the Lord. Normally, those who are endeavoring in spiritual life cannot maintain the body. They cannot maintain steady concentration if their mind and body are weakened by undereating. On the other hand, extravagant eating is a great impediment for spiritual advancement, and therefore should be given up. Yadrichayo papananam adhyachreshtam utaparam tatavasas tatashayam praptam bhajen muni. A transcendentalist should accept whatever food, clothing, and bedding comes of its own accord, whether they be very good or very poor. Sārārtha-darśinī. It is best if one can obtain food without any endeavor. A sage should not discriminate between delicious and tasteless food. He should be happy with whatever he is destined to obtain. Socham achmanam snanam na. No. Socham achmanam snanam na tuchoda naya charit anyangscha niyaman gyani yataham lilayeshvara. I am the Supreme Lord, and yet I execute religious duties by my own free will. So even the Supreme Lord executes religious duties by his own free will. Similarly, one who is advancing in self-realization should wash his hands, bathe, and perform other regulative duties, just to lead others on the right path. Okay, we'll end with this because it's just turned 8:30. Sārārtha-darśinī. A devotee of the Lord is not a servant of rules and regulations. He is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still, he executes the regulative duties in relation to the material body by his own free will and not as a servant of the rules and regulations. He follows these rules out of his own free will, not as a servant of the rules and regulations. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One who leads his life in a way that is favorable for the service of the Supreme Lord is always a liberated soul, although situated within the material world. Devotees of the Lord on the Paramahansa platform are not compelled to perform bodily activities, such as brushing the teeth or bathing, like ordinary people. Such a Paramahansa may be impure or unclean according to material estimation, because he is a servant of Lord Krishna and not of rules and regulations. Yeah, like my Param Gurudev would only bathe like once in a week, because he was so busy. All right, so we are going to end here. I'll just read the translation since we were going to read this. A self-realized soul does not see anything as separate from me because he has passed out of the dense darkness of illusion. However, because of his previous habits that absorbed his body and mind in sense gratification, he may sometimes be seen to act like an ordinary conditioned soul. Still, upon quitting his body at the time of death, such a devotee will be awarded my divine opulence. One who has become disgusted with material enjoyment, knowing that it ultimately produces only misery, and who desires spiritual perfection, but has not understood the process for attaining it, should approach a spiritual master who is fixed in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so we're ending here. And we'll finish. Tomorrow is the appearance day of Janava Devi and Sita Thakurani. And so, or Sita Devi, I mean, the wife of Lord Ram, Sita, not Advaita Acharya's wife. So we will read about these two personalities. We'll finish this chapter. There's not so much left of this chapter, and then we'll read about those two personalities. And also Madhu Pandit, it will be his disappearance day. So I'm going to do Jayadvani now, and then one second, let me just make a note here before I forget. But yeah, I'll do Jayadvani, and then okay. I'll do Jayadvani, and then we will sing Keshavashtakam for those who want to stay. Hari Bol, Pramila Mataji. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Juki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Juki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosai Prabhupāda Ki Jai Nitya Pravishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gaurkishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitya Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai Nitya Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Anugagariya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaurav Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Uddhava-gīta Ki Jai Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Sārārtha-darśinī Vritti Ki Jai Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Gauḍīya Bhāṣya Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Okay, 1 second, just getting the Mridanga. Oh, Krishna. Hari Bol. Okay. I just do like okay. Nava Priya Kama Shri Keshavashtakam by Srila Rupa Gosvāmī. Nava Priya Kamanjari Rachita Karna Pura Shriyam Vinidrataramalati Kalita Shekare no Jalam Darojvasita Yuthika Kratita Valgovai Kakshaka Vraje Vijayinam Vaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Vishangi Manikastani Pranata Shingi Pingekshane Mridanga Mukhi Dhumale Shabali Hansi Vangshi Priye Iti Sasura Bhikula Taralama Vayanta Muda Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Kana Pranaya Meduran Madhura Narma Goshti Kala Vilasa Nilayan Milay Vivida Vesha Vidotina Sakena Kila Saraya patiṣuhasayantam gira vraje vijayinam bhaje vipinadeshata keshavam shamambukanikavali Daravilida Gandantara Samudagiri Dhatuvir Likita Charupantram Kuram Udancharali Mandali Duti Vidam Bivakralakam Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Nibadhanavatarnaka Vali Vilotkanotkanthaya Naṭhākura Putānchalai Alogubhir Bhuvam Bindatim Kalena Dhavala Ghatam Lago Nirvartayantam Puro Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Padankatati Bhirvaram Virachayantam Advashiyam Chalattarala Naichiki Nichaya Dhuli Dhumra Srajam Marulla Hari Chanchali Krita Dukula Churanchalam Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Virasa Murali Kala Dvani Birula Sanmanasa Chanarakila Balavi Pulakayantamantarvihe Mohor Vidatatang Hridi Pramudit Chancha Goshteshware Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Upetya Pati Sundari Tati Virabhirabyarchitam Smetankura Vitar Natarapanga Bhangi Shatar Sthanasthavaka Sancharan Nayana Chanchari Kanchalam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Idam Nikhila Ballavi Kula Mahotsavo Lasanam Pramena Kilaya Puman Patati Shushtupadashtakam Tam Ujjvala Diyam Sada Nijapadara Vindadvaye Ratenda Dada Chanchalam Sukayatar Vishakha Saka Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Jaya Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav-dev Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav-dev Keshav-dev Jaya Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Sachinanda Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Śrīla Gurudev ki Jai, Śrīla Param Gurudev ki Jai, Śrīla Prabhupāda ki Jai, Śrī Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai, Śrī Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Śrī Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashaja Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhesha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. All right, everybody, so I'll see you all tomorrow for the appearance day of Janava, right? I think so, yeah. Appearance day of Janava Devi and Sita Devi, and also the disappearance day of Sri Madhu Pandit. So we'll read about them and also finish off this 12th chapter of Uddhava-gīta, our 18th chapter from 11th canto. Yeah, there's only a little bit left. All right, Hari Bol, everybody. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol, Pramila Mataji. Hare Krishna.